You're a college student and you're oblivious. Think about that statement. Let it sink in. How does that make you feel? Probably a little uncomfortable, right? You're oblivious to those around you who are crying out for help, to those who need help but are not saying anything, not a word. You're oblivious to the signs and symptoms of human trafficking because you don't know how to recognize them. You're too caught up in your own life and schedule. You're too busy focusing on that exam that you have to cram study for, that paper that you have to write for that professor nobody likes, that long shift that you have to cover but you need the cash for it, the family responsibilities, the friend drama. Your life's pretty busy. You don't have time for anything else. So what can you do? Right? What if I told you that girl that you had English lit with, you know, the one that sits on the right next to you, she doesn't really say anything and she's pretty timid, but you know what girl I'm talking about. What if I told you that she was trapped in a prostitution ring because all she needed was a little extra cash, but she got a lot more than what she bargained for? What if I told you that that guy you met at the bar with your friends, you know, the really cute one that you almost got the number of, what if I told you he was prostituting and trafficking girls all up and down the streets and you had no idea? What if I told you there are 7,572 known cases of human trafficking in the United States today? The key word here is known. That's crazy. But let's freshen up on human trafficking. What is it to begin with? Human trafficking is the buying and selling of people for forced labor and sexual exploitation. There are 20.9 million cases globally of human trafficking today. The U.S. is one of the top 10 destinations for human trafficking. Now, here's the ringer. If most people were asked today, they would say slavery doesn't exist, that it was brought out of the United States a long time ago. Most people are wrong. Did you think about that before this presentation? Were you wrong? The common misconception of human trafficking is that it's found in city streets and dark motel rooms. The thing is, human trafficking is everywhere. And we're going to talk about a few scenarios of it today. In Irving, Texas, a teenager was charged with human trafficking and prostitution after police discovered that he had drugged a fellow classmate and held her for 3 days while he sold her to several men for money in exchange for drugs. It's awful. Scenario 2. A teenage student in League City, Texas was charged with prostitution after local authorities discovered that the 17-year-old male suspect was driving female students ages 14 to 17 to a man's house for illegal sexual activity. In the process of the investigation, authorities also found 9 other girls that had been lured into prostitution as well. 9 other girls. Now I know what you're thinking. You're a college student. This doesn't really apply to you. These are teenagers and high schoolers and middle schoolers, and it's far away from you. Your campus is safe. There's nothing like that going around, and you're not affected. But human trafficking is unfortunately everywhere. Everywhere around you. Think about the people you pass on the street. Think about the people you work with. Think about your family and friends. But how does human trafficking happen? Well, there are 2 techniques. First technique, the boyfriend technique. It's where a person is befriended by the opposite sex or the same sex into a relationship that the person eventually cannot get out of. It becomes a trap. The second technique is the runaway technique. This usually happens to foster kids and kids who run away from home. Kids that are under the radar. Unfortunately, these kids are never suspected and they're never reported because nobody knows they're gone. Nobody knows they're missing. But what can a college student do about it? How can they make a difference? Well, it doesn't really happen like it happens in Hollywood. Human trafficking is not like Taken. Most people who are grabbed are not rich vacationed college girls. Most people don't have the same heroic ending like Taken does. But how can you college students make a difference? How can you help people out there that are out of your reach? The first thing, recognize the signs and symptoms. This is really important. So what you want to look for are the physical symptoms, stuff you can see. So bones and bruises, cuts, burns, anything you can see, malnourishment, sexual transmitted diseases. Some other symptoms you can look for emotionally is fear, resistance to touch, not wanting to talk, very timid. For children especially, high levels of maturity for their age. I'm not just talking about, oh, they're mature, so they're fine. I'm talking about extreme high levels of maturity and them buying things that are not even appropriate for their age. Another thing for children to recognize is if they're in school, if they're with families, if they're present in the real world. The second thing you can do is raise awareness. Be a part of a group. Be a part of a campaign. Campaigns today that fight against human trafficking are Polaris Project, Urban Light, or A21. These are a few campaigns that will fight against it. Another thing you can do if you don't have time for campaigning, like most college students, is volunteer on campus. Become part of a group on campus to raise awareness. Make signs, make posters, stand out in the middle of the square and talk about it with people. Help raise support and awareness of the problem. The last thing you can do is report. Reporting is so important. Report even if you're unsure, even if you're a little suspicious, even if a friend asks you not to report, even if a child says they're fine, they're not being abused, when you know they're lying, even if it's scary and you feel like it might endanger them more, report it anyway. Silence is more life-threatening than asking for help. You don't have to be a superhero. You don't have to be the next president of the United States. You don't have to be a police officer or a spy. All you have to do is be aware and be able to recognize the signs and symptoms, be willing to listen, be willing to be in tune with those around you, and be willing to help. It's all you have to do. Be willing to say, I am not okay with this. I don't like what's happening here. It all starts with you, college student. It all starts with you. You remember when they told us that we could be anything when we grew up? That we could do anything? Do you believe that? Thank you.